emotional point of view, given his upbringing in his dad's church, he couldn't reject it.
It was convoluted because of child abuse.
Yeah. But, I mean, we argued about that. And I remember one of the last nights we were together in Belgium, there was a documentary on Coltrane, and we were watching Coltrane. And this was Coltrane's kind of spiritual period after Love Supreme.
Yeah.
Where he's really preaching, and Marvin going, wow, this is,
and he's really out there, dude.
And he's really out there. And Marvin got it. I mean, he completely understood that we were in the Church of John Coltrane. And so he didn't say, this is, the devil's music. But his childhood conditioning and his kind of trauma, he was traumatized as a child. And so was Aretha, and so was Ray. And when you have childhood trauma and you don't have the means to, you just need help. I mean, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but also like that in that community, that's not something you get. That happens a lot, dude.
Yeah.
You keep it at home.
Yeah. Well, in the case of Ray, he was so strong.
But losing your brother and then losing your eyesight. I mean, those
exactly.
But that's not the same as like a Pentecostal minister father fucking your brain up.
No, but I don't know how you compare trauma. I mean, that's a hell of a trauma to go.
No, it's a hell of a trauma, but it's not. It's not abuse. It's not gaslighting.
That's an important distinction. I agree with you. It is not abuse at the hands of a parent. Mm-hmm. And I think that's an important distinction. And that may be why Ray was able to live a relatively long life. But it's also important to remember about Ray, and this is a story that was not told in the movie, but I think it's an important story, that Ray died of alcoholic liver disease. He drank himself to death.
Yeah, those junkies. It's hard if they don't. A lot of them switch to the weird booze.
Exactly. He gave up heroin, and that's the triumphant thing in the movie. But every day he mixed gin and coffee and 5 tablespoons of sugar and drank it from morning till night. And now again, he was operative. So he would argue with you when you would tell him he was alcoholic.
Right. But it's funny that they can't. It's hard to get that monkey off your back, like Keith Richards, William Burroughs. They all did that thing with the, vodka or whatever. They had to figure out how to keep tamping it down.
And by the way, I'm not sure. I'm not in that category. I mean, again, I don't drink or drug but I'm an extremely compulsive person in my work. I'm compulsive about clothes. I love clothes.
Look, all right. So if it's not making your life unmanageable, David.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But no, I just don't want anyone to get the idea that I'm cured. I mean, I'm pretty, but the other thing I want to say
we just put it out. You're still fucked up.
Right. And also, I accept the fact that I'm a mess. And one of the things I like about jazz and funk particularly, I love funk. I like the Ohio Players.
I just talked to Bootsy.
Oh, yeah, Bootsy's a genius,
Yeah.
One of the reasons I love funk, and it is because it's a mess, and it's raw, and it's wrong in some ways. You know what I'm saying? And I think that is, I'm just going to be that way till I die. I think I am a mess. I think the human condition is a mess. And I think that's why we relate so much to the blues, because the blues is a kind of messy music.
But the blues, the magic of it, and also like, the magic of comedy.
Comedy.
You've done a couple of books with Don Rickles as well,
Yeah.
is that, they are able to, there's a catharsis in the simplicity of the blues and of a good joke. And that, if you can take the pain and the chaos of what it is to exist in the human world and kind of render it down to a phrase or a 1-4-5 or, a few good runs of, well-timed jokes. The relief afforded the heart by those things is magic.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I am so glad that you mentioned that because, because every day I write 1,000 words. I read a lot, and every day I write, every single day. I don't take off times because I'm juggling 4 books at once because of my compulsive nature and my love of my work, and I like to sit and I like to type. But one of the things that keeps me going is going on YouTube and listening to Coltrane or Carmen McRae or whoever it is, but also comics.
Yeah.
I'll go and watch a George Carlin thing for half an hour, and it's like Charlie Parker. I mean, Carlin is just a crazy genius. And
it's funny. It's like I don't go to Carlin like so much. If I'm going down the rabbit hole, like I'll like lately I've been doing some Rodney. And
I feel that way about him. I've actually kind of rediscovered him in the last 4 or 5.
Oh, he's the king of pain, dude. The king of pain.
I underestimated him when he first came out. And
everyone did.
I'm going back and I'm seeing he's a blues artist, man. I mean, he's
sure
something. But I'm also getting off on they got all the old Johnny Carson stuff. Yeah. So I've been watching Carson with Buddy Hackett.
Sure, Buddy's great.
Telling old-time Jewish stories and Catskill stuff. And that's a kind of blues genius. And
for sure, man.
And then a Pryor, of course, without saying. And so comedy to me, I agree with you. I mean, comedy to me, these are sort of nutrients. We live in... It's this toxic world that we live in. And we're always kind of breathing in toxics. We're kind of watching TV and this guy is toxic and he's poisoned our culture so that we need sort of nutrients to be healthy and not go crazy. And
sure.
to me, the nutrients are Nancy Wilson and Richard Pryor and Buddy Hackett and Rodney Dangerfield.
What I've been saying is you use whatever means at your disposal to maintain your sanity without hurting yourself or others.
Well, and also I put it, I think we kind of see things basically I put it a tiny bit differently, which is my job. I got 2 jobs. One is not to go crazy.
Yeah.
And one is to make a living. Because if I go crazy, I won't be able to make a living.
But hey, man, you might have to.
What if go crazy?
Yeah, right. What if you have to be crazy to make a living, though?
And I think it's a controlled kind of craziness. So.
Sure, of course. Yeah, after a certain point, once you get the hang out of how to work your own crazy, you can fucking do it. What was your take? Spending time with Don Rickles. What was your how did you assess his heart?
Well, I caught up with Don after he had lost his fastball. So it was challenging. I mean, he was great. And he's one of the kings in the Jackie Leonard, Milton Berle tradition. I was honored to do it. It's hard. I have worked with 3 comics. The hardest thing for me to do is to voice a comic. I'm not sure why.
Well, I mean, because they've got a I imagine it's a little easier to, but not with Aretha, but it's probably a little easier to chip away at a musician by blowing a little smoke up their ass. You could probably get an easier route to their heart, maybe. Whereas a comic is pretty well guarded all the way down. Guarded,
and also lots of comics, and you know more about this, so I should be asking you.
I don't know. I don't know if that's true.
Comics have sort of a mean streak. I mean, I kind of think meanness is an important ingredient to comedy.
It's the same thing. It's the same, yeah.
And I don't see that as as anything wrong or sort of negative. I think the expression of anger is important for our culture, and that's why Rodney is great, and Rickles is great, Milton Berle is great. So
Who were the other ones? Who'd you do? Don
Groucho is the angriest of them all, and Groucho was a crazy genius.
Yeah, you got to layer that charm on top of that rage, buddy.
Right. But under the rage, there is a kind of a meanness and a sort of nastiness that's difficult for me, because under Marvin Gaye or Aretha even, there is a love and a sweetness and a kind of, again, a kind of a godliness.
Childlike.
Childlike, right. But so in Don's case, he didn't have his fastball, which is very important to him.
The funny thing about Don, and compared to like Rodney, is like almost none of Don Rickles' jokes were great or written. It was all driven by timing and beats and rage. But like Rodney wrote jokes. I mean, no. Don, most of the things he says don't even make sense.
No, exactly. And it's all the vibe of his rhythm and the vibe of this kind of perpetual thing. And so that I didn't have that because he was older and not well. So anyway, I mean, it was a great experience. I was honored to do it. I had to go through 4 or 5 drafts until I got the voice right. And it's like you were talking about. There aren't jokes. There's just this kind of rhythmic, compulsive stream of consciousness. And on paper, it's not as funny as it is out loud.
Yeah.
So, but it turned out it was a hit book, and made I was happy with the whole thing. We did it. We did 2 books, and I would love to do more comics.
Who were the other 2?
Andrew Dice Clay and Sinbad.
Oh, he's a sweet guy.
Right. And that was an easy book to do.
He's like, he knows how to talk about his heart.
Andrew was tough. Dice was tough, and there was a lot of heat between us, and it was tough. But by the way, if you watch that bad TV show, Vinyl, and you see Andrew's part in it, he's a hell of an actor, man.
No, he's good, man. I've talked to him. I know Dice.
He's really, really talented, brilliant guy in a certain way. But as a collaboration, it was not easy.
But also, you kind of, if your trick works, you get these people to kind of, present a well-rounded portrait of themselves, that they, but a lot of people don't have the equipment to get into their hearts or the courage to speak openly about their bisexuality like you do, or, or your struggle with spirituality and as a Jew, kind of like landing on Jesus or sexual abuse or sexual trauma as a child. So, there are just some people that you're never going to get there. And I thought that was sort of interesting about, again, with Aretha, that you had this persistence and this, not unlike originally with Ray, that, this was the Godhead for you, was to talk to her. And you talked to everybody around her and everybody that knew her about everything. And they all told you she ain't going to give you anything. Yeah. And that's a dark tunnel, dude. And did you ever, because I remember talking to you about Respect, and you said, well, look, because you originally were involved, then you're not involved, then the estate is protective. I mean, in retrospect, what was that experience for you? I mean, you wrote a book with her, and then you wrote a book about her. Yeah. Do you feel like you got to where you needed to be with her?
Well, let me go back to me as a hustler, because I hustled that book harder than any book. I chased after her for 18 or 19 or 20 years.
Wow.
Because, again, to me, it was Ray, Marvin, and Aretha. And I just had to do it. And ultimately, I caught up with her. And when I caught up with her, it was one of the happiest moments of my professional life when she told me, yes, you can do the book. I was jumping out of my skin, man. I was up for nights. I was just giddy. And I remember the first time I went to her house, I went there the night before just to make sure when I went there the next day, I wouldn't get lost and lose my way. And then everybody told me, like Jerry and her brothers, and said, they all told me, you aren't going to sort of get anywhere. She's got this wall built around her. But I was arrogant. And I was happy I was arrogant, because my arrogance allowed me to do this autobiography. But my arrogance was, I'm going to be so charming and so sweet. I am going to kind of melt her, and I'm going to get the intimacy. Because to me, these books are all about intimacy. They're all about intimacy. And I did not make a dent in her armor. I mean, we had some good times in the kitchen. eating food, and she's a wonderful cook, and listening to gospel music, and listening to Nancy Wilson. I mean, it isn't that we
Yeah,
didn't
but
have
she was
good-
trying to hustle you, man.
Right, but I didn't get to the heart of the story.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
In either book?
No, I think